Hello. In the Crown of Aragon 639 years ago, it was June 18th, 1387. My name is Jonathan Seyfried. I'm a PhD candidate in history at the University of New Mexico, and this is the Historian's Notebook, a podcast about how history gets made. Season 1 is titled Multcara Companiona. We're looking at a document from each day of the first year of the reign of King Joan I of Aragon and Queen Violante de Bar. Let's begin today's document. Today is the third episode in a row that we are looking at the Commune Sigilli Secreti register from Joan. And as we have been going from one day to the next in this little trio of episodes, we of course have been moving forward in time, but we have been moving backward in the register. The document dated June 16th that we looked at 2 days ago is on folio 11R to 12V. Yesterday's document was on 6R to 7V, and then today's document is on 5V. So obviously the registers are often out of chronological order, and somehow the workflow for the chancery generated results like this, where you've just got a pile of outgoing letters that have, I think, not yet been sent out, and then waiting to be copied, but for some reason the stack is not in chronological order, and so as they're copied into the chancery register before they're sent out, they get put down in a different order from how they were originally written. So, alright, today's document is a Latin document, and I feel quite hobbled by not being able to use Claude because of the usage limit problem that I described in yesterday's episode. But, I said to myself, all right, well, let's just see what happens when I do not use AI for a Latin document and just kind of see how it goes. And even then, it's like, am I purely not using AI? Because I still used Google Translate, which I think has got some AI built into it. So what I did is I did my best, because this was not a terribly long document. It's about 20 lines. So I did my best to transcribe it. And then I pasted my transcription into Google Translate, and I think I got a good sense of the meaning of the document, although certain important details are still unclear to me. I could have pasted this one into Gemini, but I kind of felt like, you know what? Gemini's transcription is so unreliable that while it would have given me a general sense of the document, I probably would have been thrown off a couple times, and without being able to have Claude check it, I'm just not sure it's worth the effort or the usage in terms of environmental cost for Gemini. So Google Translate of my original transcription, and there were a couple stumpers in here where I just didn't know what the word was. It could have been more than one thing. So in particular, in the line, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6th line of the text block, 7th line if you count Rex Aragonum at the top, there's this word that I feel like I know it, and I can't quite remember it. It's LRIS. Those are the letters written. And then there's a macron. So something, yeah, like, and it appears 3 times in the document, maybe even 4 times. It's just really bugging me that I can't quite figure out what that word is. With an R. I thought it was something like Loki's, like with a C, but it is clearly an R. Oh, it's just really bugging me so much. Well, what I can say about this document is that it's very clearly one in a genre that we've grown pretty used to in the podcast, I think, in which there's an ecclesiastical post open, and Joan or Violante is writing in recommendation of a certain person to fill that post. Now, who is the recipient of this letter? I think we've got a letter that's going out to multiple people, and that's because in the first line I see Cardinalis Aragonem Cancelar. So I think it's the Cardinals, or maybe that's not plural. Maybe it's something of the Cardinal of Aragon. Yeah, see, this is not easy. Also, in the first line, I am stumped by a word. So, okay, it's about 6 words in. Venerabilis pater in Christo. So, venerabilis. All right, so venerable Father in Christ, and then after the et, it's SAPLM with a macron through the L. So I think this means sapellum, which would mean like smaller, which doesn't sound right. It's the smaller reverends. And so it could be something like this is being addressed to the bishops and the cardinals and the lesser reverends, but it doesn't seem plural necessarily. So my lack of Latin knowledge is proving really problematic here, and I just don't consider it worth my time to really get a detailed view of this right now, but I might come back to it later. And I'll explain why when I get to the probata. But first, I want to say a little bit more about what I think is going on in this document. So, there is somebody named either Berenguer or Bernard Dalpicato. And that person is involved in the open position that is like a canonry, and has, I think, contacted Marti, Joan's brother. And then there's another person named Francisco de, and then I struggled with the name here. It's something like, so it's the first word of line 5 of the text block, and the end of line 4, I think it's clearly a name. So it says Francisco de, and then, what is it? Something like Tanonicatu? That is so unusual of a name. This is very difficult, because it could also be something like Canonicatu. I don't know what's going on there. But anyway, so there's this Francisco, and it seems like Francisco is involved somehow in this decision making about whether, I think it's the son of either Bernard or Berenguer Dalpicato, is going to be getting this canonry, and that's what I got. So seemingly like having nothing really to do with anything controversial, not too exciting, just another one of these interventions in ecclesiastical administration and job searches. Gosh. But I will say that there is something about this document that might merit my attention later, which is that the scribe who wrote it is Violant's principal scribe, Bartolomeo Sirvent. And in the Probata, we have, after his name, kind of a standard commanded by the king, and then from the provision of Francis da Conda, who is a knight counselor. So, all right, so basically it's Bartolomeo Sirvent just acting like he was on the regular chancery staff for Joan. So, all right, that's something we sort of have seen, fairly frequently. Just happens every now and then. And the other piece of it, though, that's interesting is that the document that ends at the top of Folio 5V above this document is very weird because it is from May. It's from the 15th of May. And we have to think back to how Joan almost died on the night of April 28th. And so those first 2 weeks of May, I don't think he's very functional. And so what we see in the Probata in this document dated 15th of May is that it is a Domina Regina. So it's Violant. Ex parte, Domina Regina ex parte, on behalf of Domini Rex, mandavit mihi. So it was Violant who, on behalf of the king, commanded that scribe. And who is that scribe? It's Joan's principal scribe, Pere de Beniore, or one of Joan's most common scribes, Pere de Beniore. So interesting how on a single folio we have Violant's scribe writing for Joan and Joan's scribe writing for Violant. And also they're like a month apart. So is this reflective of some kind of destabilized atmosphere in the administration of the chancery? That is also a consequence of Joan's illness and the shakeup that came from it, and also a kind of settling in of a level of co-rule. Is that reading too much into the Probata information? That is something that I would very much like to know the answer to. Is this Probata information something you can really hang your hat on when it comes to thinking about the story of how Joan and Violant were ruling together, to what extent they were? Thanks for listening to this episode of The Historian's Notebook, Season 1, Molt cara compagnona. If you are leaving with more questions than you arrived with, I have done my job. Remember, the motto of the Historian's Notebook is dissatisfaction guaranteed. Visit the website to see an image of today's document and additional show notes, and listen again tomorrow to hear about the next day in the first year of the reign of King Joan I of Aragon and Queen Violante de Bar. In the meantime, take care.